3, 2, 1. Welcome
back to the
Jessyl and Alex podcast. Season 4, episode 12, the finale. Even though Alex is telling me no, it's not. I am. I'm calling it. Boom. Beat you to it. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see, Alex's snarky looks. It's been a long day.
She's in one of her moods.
I'm in one of my moods. You're in one of your moods.
You want to talk about this on live air?
Yeah, we can talk about this in live air. It's been a long mother effing day. All right. It is 22:22. And it is, look, I'm not lying. I didn't make that up. It is 22:22.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess this isn't episode. This is not the finale.
Okay.
2222.
We'll see.
Validation that it's not.
It's validation that it is.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about how we just spent most of our day packing and sitting in a bus to get to Santo Domingo. And now we're like dehydrated because we haven't had water. So I ordered Uber Eats and I ordered 2 5-liter bottles of water. And then when I look at the order of what the guy actually shopped, guess what he's missing? He's missing the water. He's not bringing me water. I'm like, from all the things I ordered, the one thing I really, really wanted was just some water. That's it.
We've had our fun travel days. So on travel days, we usually don't do these types of things, but because we forgot to do it on Thursday last week, and it is podcast release day, so we're doing it today. And let me tell you what.
So we are releasing this podcast on Monday, but for those of you who are already asleep, it's just getting released very late on Monday.
Yeah. So we told ourselves that we were going to pack the house with an ample amount of time so we didn't feel rushed.
Yeah.
And we still ended up packing all the way up
to the morning of.
The morning up till the minute that we walked out of the door.
Well, partially, and I will say partially, is like the house was bare bones. So like no pillows, no bedding, no sheets, none of that. And I was like, I'm not sleeping on a bare mattress even the night before. So like we had to pack up all our own bedding the morning of. And then there was just like, we were still living in the house and eating. And it's like, it's very difficult to like pack away the things when you're also using them. So it's like, at what point do you pack away your sheets and your pillows and your salts and your this and your that as you're also living in the house and eating? So I said, hey, maybe a new rule is like 48 hours before we have to be checked out of a place. We just like get an Airbnb for 2 nights and go somewhere else. So at least that way you're like, okay, I know I can pack this all away. So.
But on a positive note, one of the things that I teach people about speaking is that it's an identity. So it's like a face. Like you jump in this circle and boom, you put your face on. And I feel like today, and I'm so grateful for this. So grateful for this. Today, our kids did that with their travel faces. Like we went, they remember their places and the routine and the things that have to happen with regards to getting in travel mode. So everybody's pushing suitcases, carrying backpacks.
Yeah, I mean, for the boys, we could say I did not pack their backpacks. I didn't pack any of their stuff. Like we told them like kind of what they had to take. And we told them to like put their stuff in 3 piles. We did like at one point kind of go through their clothing options in the sense of like, hey, let's make sure that you're not bringing only your Encuentro beach wear and your tagged up shirts. Like, hey, we're getting out of the campo. We're going to more cities and you're going to need, better clothing for that. But other than that, the boys pretty much handle it on their own. And I mean, the girls did too. They started shoving all their stuff in their bags, but I always comb through their stuff one more time just to make sure like, okay. Because, kids, they have the shirts that they painted with and they have paint splatters and they're colored all over or they're stained from them rubbing their butts on the soil. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to travel with that stuff. Like, either get rid of it or put it in storage. You can come back to it, but we're not taking it on our trip.
And we still have to slim down.
Yeah, I mean I feel like that's a never ending.
Slimming it down.
Slimming it down. We
All
have
of
three
our
suitcases, and I think they're all overweight.
and the thing is this, we didn't even plan on bringing 3.
We're gonna bring 2, and the third one is also overweight. So I'm just like, what are we even doing with our lives right now?
Yeah. Do you wanna
But
talk about something, before we
we're just here, blah, 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 blah.
just
I mean, if
word
you listen
vomit?
to our podcast this long, that means you really love us. So thanks.
And if you listen to our podcast, sometimes we go all over the place, and sometimes we have a direction.
Oh, we have a direction. Our direction is that we're going to take a 2-week break, and this is our final podcast before we take the 2-week break. We'll be back. It won't be that long. We just need to I need to adjust to my sleep schedule in Europe, in Spain, in another time zone. And we also have to receive our niece who's going to come visit us. And we need to settle into the next Airbnb. And I think once we're settled there, then, I mean, if we can record a podcast, cool, then maybe we'll get ahead a few episodes.
Yeah. So let's talk about real quick the power of influence.
The power of influence. My brain is barely functioning right now. I had very little sleep. And I might have had a cappuccino very late at night. But the power of influence. If I would have had this conversation 3 days ago in the daytime, it would have felt really good. Right now, my brain is barely putting thought process together. But no, we were having this conversation about the power of influence because our children, and it's a lot of what we've talked about in other podcasts as far as like leadership and environment, and how kids, they're at this age where they're so easily, influenced by the things around them and what they see. And this conversation started was with Grayson, and it kind of went down a rabbit hole after that. I recently, some of you guys know this, I had taken that 4-month social media break. And during that time, I didn't know one of my friends from college passed away. When I came back on, one of my friends reached out and she was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, like a month ago, this happened." And this was a beautiful, very smart girl. She was so loving, super nice. And I had met her when I was going to Santa Monica Community College. I was 19 and we played water polo together. And she helped me out so many times that I can't even count on, like when I really needed help. And she was a great person. But the power of influence, right? She had some rough times as a kid, and although she didn't really portray or show that in a way like you're like, oh yeah, this person's traumatized, obviously it still came out in ways that at that age you're like, oh, they're just someone who's having fun and enjoying life. But as you get older, you see that it's often a coping mechanism for people. And for her, that was smoking a lot of weed. Like she was constantly high. Like she would wake up and the first thing she did was like hit her bong. And from when I knew her, that's all she did. And about, I say, after I had Grayson, he was maybe like 9 or 10 months old. And I remember because I was with her, we went to one of our favorite restaurants to eat breakfast. And while we were sitting there, there was these 2 guys at the next table, and they actually started talking. They were talking to her because obviously they saw I had a baby. And so I watched her meet this guy that day. And they get into a relationship, whatever. A few weeks, months later, like I find out she's doing harder drugs. And I was like a bit in shock because I was like, I didn't think that that's what she did and who she was. And she got hooked on this stuff, and she went through rehab, and then she would get back on it. And this point is, it eventually led to them finding her in a tent in downtown LA. And I haven't looked it up. I didn't confirm, but I'm pretty sure that's, what led to her death. But anyhow, the power of influence. I was explaining, having these conversations with Grayson, who's a little older, and telling him like, sometimes you are in environments, like the first time I ever went to college was the first time I ever saw like coke just sitting in bags like all over houses, and there was literally drugs everywhere. And I was like, when you're in these environments, it's just very easy to want to say yes because you're afraid of how other people see you or may perceive you. And I was against, and I said, depending where you are, people might even want to pressure you to do it. I said, thankfully, I was never in a situation where I was being pressured. So I always was like, no thanks, that's not my thing, and moving on. But I was explaining this to all, and then we got into the story about my friend, and he's just like, but why would people do that? But I don't get it. He's like, it doesn't make sense if it's a bad thing. And that's where I see like the correlation of like, yes, influence has a lot to do with it, but so does all this stuff within yourself that sometimes we ignore, like the trauma, and you're not dealing with it, or if you're not aware of it. And like she was aware of it, and she tried to bring it up with her mom and talk about it. Basically, her mom ignored her, and I think that's where it gets even worse, because it's almost like you're trying to tell someone like, hey, this happened, and that person is like, no, it didn't. And I'm like, man, that has to be even worse, because then the person starts questioning themselves, like, am I crazy? Like, am I imagining this? And Grayson's a little older, so I don't really talk about things I feel like this somewhat strong, heavy topics with Caden yet. Like, we get into some of the stuff, but not as deep as I do with Grayson. And he asks a lot of questions, and I start answering them. But I also believe that it is our duty as parents to have these conversations with our kids and the realities of what the world, like what they may face in the world one day. And that's what I tell them. I was like, look, I'm not telling you this so you're scared, or you think that you're going to turn out this way or anything like this. I was like, I'm just telling you, like, you're 12 and a half, you're going to be 13. Like, you might have friends who are already doing these things or start doing these things or whatever, or people, around you. And I don't mean like 12-year-olds, but, teenagers. And I said, these are the things that you need to be aware of and know where you stand as a person so you can walk away from them. So you don't end up being like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's okay. Or, you know what? I'm just going to try this one time. Because that's how it was for my friend, for her. Like, she told me, she's like, oh no, it's just this one time, but because of everything else she had experienced in her life, the one time turned into many times and essentially a very young death. So, yeah, what do you have to say about the power of influence? I kind of just went
No,
on a
no, I mean,
tangent there.
I was, well, it was well needed, right? I think that was very beneficial in all of it. Here's the thing. I think as a parent and also someone that's been around drugs and alcohol in these environments a lot as a child because of my upbringing, I think that I believe that it's about being able to educate our children on the honest truth of it. And so, for instance, we were talking with Grayson about alcohol. Now, that doesn't mean because I don't drink alcohol, because I don't drink alcohol, and Giselle doesn't drink alcohol, that we're like, oh, don't be around people that drink alcohol. It's our choice. And the thing that we do with our kids is we educate them on the fact that, like, hey, there is no proven scientific benefits of alcohol. Now, do I want my son or my daughters to go and drink alcohol for the first time with other people? Absolutely not. So I'm being very aware when we talk about influence of creating a space that they feel fearful if they bring up alcohol.
That they don't feel fearful.
Yeah, that they don't feel fearful in the sense
Okay.
of like
I thought you said that they do.
they don't feel fearful if they bring up alcohol, or
Yeah.
their, drugs, whatever the case may be. Like it's
Yeah. So that was like one thing I told Grayson. I was like, look, regardless of our stance in any of this, I said, we're your parents. Like, at the end of the day, if you have questions, curiosity, like, bring them to us. Like, that's what we're here for. And I was like, we're not going to judge you on that. Like, if anything, we will be here to navigate it with you, because, growing up for me as a child, like, I knew that was a heck no in my house. Like, I couldn't bring any of that stuff up to my parents. Like, that would have immediately, garner a scolding and ass whooping. You're not going to leave the house for the rest of your life, threat. So, I told him, I was like, I don't want you to think that of us. Like, if any, like if you ever have that curiosity or that need of like, oh my gosh, I want to try this, I was like, I'd rather you come to me. And if I feel like it's an appropriate time, like that we can provide that. If that's the case, like, oh, I want to taste wine or I want to taste a beer, like please come to us. Don't go get drunk with your friends for the first time, because you just never know how people are going to act, how you're going to react, like any of that. And Grayson's like, no, I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm never going to touch
Yeah.
alcohol, blah, blah, blah. And I know he's still like young. I'm not saying that he's this perfect child and not going to do that, but I know like for his mind, like he's still very young. So he's like, heck no. But I do think it's important to start opening that conversation at this age. Cause like I said, he's starting to pull towards having those relationships with older kids and older teens, and he has a lot of freedom. Granted, what's the word, he has earned it, he has earned the freedom 100%, and he has never like violated that trust in a way that we're like, oh no, absolutely not, like we're pulling back on this. So I'm really happy for him in that sense that he has earned his freedom. And I know that with freedom comes great responsibility, and that's why we have these conversations with
As
him.
Peter Parker said, or Ben Parker,
I don't know.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But anyhow, power of influence is something, that we talk to our children about, because even in small things, like small moments, like the girls have this new thing where they're like, oh, boys aren't allowed in our room, or like boys can't do this or boys can't do that. And unfortunately, it is learned behavior from people that they've been in close contact with. And that's one of the things that Alex and I spoke about, that were happy to be able to travel and just be back in our own little bubble, because we're able to correct those things. Like we're able to put our children back on our tracks versus like other people's tracks. And it's the unfortunate reality of like, yes, it's great to have friends and hang out with other people and this and that. And then sometimes those people can also influence your children very easily without you even noticing. Like this
Yeah.
is something that I feel like slowly crept up on us. And then we're like, wait, where's this coming from? What's happening here? And unfortunately with Linabelle, it is very difficult to autocorrect those things in her. And then because she's older, Lumi just falls right into her track. And she's like, oh, we're doing what Linabelle does because, she's the older one.
And this is an adult, the power of influence. This is important why it's why it is important that we get in relationships with people around us that have very similar values and how we want to raise our kids the right way. Because it's not like you're getting everything consistent across the board. And I feel like kids need a lot of congruency and consistency throughout how, especially in this situation, how it's being taught. So, the power of influence can go both ways, right? It can be negative and it can be positive. And
Yeah.
if we are aware of that, and that's one thing I was telling Jessyl with we're going back into the alcohol and drugs situation. I grew up around it and it was normalized. And I thought alcohol was cool. And I mean, I can't speak for her, but for me, I was the one at the keggers when I was 6 years old or 8 years old, pumping the beer at the.
I did not do any of that.
No, I mean, I didn't drink it, but I was like,
No, I
everybody
didn't.
would pay me 25 cents if I
Yeah, no.
poured their beer from the keg. And this was,
I was like, the only thing we were able to do as a kid was we could pull out like a cold beer and go hand it to one of my uncles or aunts or like a
yeah.
family member, but that was about it.
But yeah.
We weren't allowed to touch anything
But
else.
my point is going with our kids and how we're raising them, they don't see us drinking and they don't see us, um, you know, doing these things. I know that I've mentioned this to you many times and other people as well. With men, they emulate the most masculine relationship they experienced growing up. And so when I look at the environment that I am focused on cultivating with the kids and the girls around alcohol and drugs, and they see how that I show up and not drinking that, it's a good example for them. So that doesn't mean that they're not going to do that when they're older, but I just feel like the power of influence with us, we can focus on what we can control and how
Yeah.
we show up into the world and be the best versions of ourselves, communicate what's going on, educate. I think about this many times, like in the Navy, one of the things that I had always told my sailors before they go on liberty was, I can't make the decision for you, but I can educate you to the point where you know what's the right decision. And I feel like that's with our kids too.
Yeah, education. I think that that is part of the equation, but like you said, the other part is just the way we show up in our own lives. Because you can educate all you want, and if you're doing the complete opposite, your child is going to be like, "Well, why are you telling me one thing and you're doing something else?" So I think that that's the most important part as parents is if you want your child to do certain things, then you need to also show up in that way. And, we've seen that with many people around us where, yes, people say this from the mouth out, like, oh, I want my kids to be this way and this and that. But then they're not that in their lives. And not to say that we're perfect in what we do and that anyone's perfect, but just strive your best. Get there as best as you can to be that person so that your kids can have an example within their own house, under their own roof of what that looks like.
And I also feel, and this doesn't really, may not go with the power of influence, but our kids are our teachers. And so when like we're going through this journey and things are, when we're having this awareness, maybe it's more that we have to dive into ourselves in that area. So, one thing, and we can talk about this in a future
I mean,
topic. I'm going to give you a good example here.
okay.
Maybe I'm going the same path, but I have a resistance of talking about sex with Grayson, like talking about the birds and the bees and so now I have to like think about that because I'm like, man, he's getting that age, he's going into
Well,
puberty.
good thing that I've been having the
No,
conversation for a long time.
no, but I'm saying, but this is what I'm talking about with bringing in awareness. I was trying to give a real life example there.
Well, my example that I was gonna give was while we were having this conversation of influence with Grayson, he was saying like, "Well, maybe one day I might have a drink." He's like if I'm in Italy or something and I'm eating some pasta, maybe I'll have a glass of wine. And he said that because literally the last time we were in Italy, I I mean, it had been like 3 or 4 years since I had had a drink, and my sister was with us, and she was having a glass of wine, and I was like, "You know what? I'll have a glass of wine." I was like, I don't have anything against, like, having one drink, and I was like, "Let's see if I can really enjoy this glass of wine." So I ordered I even told I don't know how to order wine. I don't know what's good, what's not. I told the guy kind of like, "Hey, this is how I like it, like something sweet, not too this, not to that." And he's like, "Oh, you'll love this glass." And I'm like, "Sure, sounds great." And I did not enjoy the glass of wine. Like I drank it, but I was like, what? Like I just don't like the taste of alcohol. And it's just, I've had kids for the last decade and I've been pregnant and breastfeeding and I have not done a lot of drinking. And that was partially like my reason of not drinking. I'm like, well, I'm always pregnant or I have a baby or I'm breastfeeding and I have many kids. Like I don't want to be drunk. And I just, like when I was young, like, oh yeah, it's so fun to get drunk. Like now I'm older. I'm like, no, it's not fun to get drunk. It's not fun at all. So that for me was just like, yeah, I'm good. I was like, I can't even like drink wine. Like I know I hate beer. I won't try beer. Like I don't need to try beer. I don't like beer. But I was like, oh, maybe I might, drink a glass of wine every now and then. But I didn't enjoy it. But anyhow, his giving me that example just cemented how much that one moment 2 years ago has been like ingrained in his mind as like that's what drinking looks like because he remembers me having that one glass of wine and with pasta in Italy 2 years ago. And I literally have not drinking since. But when he said that, like, I don't even know if he made that connection. I didn't bring it up, but I knew exactly where that example came from, and I was like, "Ooh, okay." I was like, "That's confronting," but I was like, and that's what like I tell him I was like, "Look, I don't want you to sit here and think like we're perfect and we have never drank and no, you shouldn't." I think extremism is dangerous. Like living in extremes, I think that is absolutely dangerous. I don't think it should be like always and never. I think being able to have that balance and awareness and knowing your own limits is the most important part. And that's what I told Grayson. I was like, I'm not telling you never, ever, ever have a drink. I'm not telling you never, ever, ever smoke marijuana. I'm not telling you never, ever, ever, ever this, but also know yourself and know if you have an issue with it, or knowing your limitations of like, you know what, I realize that if I have one drink, then I want to have 20, and saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't drink because that is what leads to me having 10 more. And I was like, that's what a lot of people lack, is having that awareness and self discipline of like, wait, this isn't good for me. And I made the example simple with him, like sugar. Like, I love sweets, I love cookies, I love baked goods, I love anything that's baked and full of sugar. Like, I love. I'm trying to lose, like, I'm losing weight. I'm eating healthier. And I know that if I eat certain sweets a week, it then, turns into this. Now I want a sweet every single day. So what I do is I limit those sweets. I don't have the cake. I don't have the cookie, because then I know that I want it every single day. And it's something so simple, like we don't have to make it as, serious as like drugs and alcohol. Like, literally be sugar. And it's like, I am aware of that, but I was like, that's not my goal. Like, if I have a goal and my goal is to be fit and healthy and lose weight, and I know that eating sugar in this way leads to me having these, spirals, then I'm like, okay, then I know that I can't have that and I shouldn't have that and I'm not going to. So that's kind of how I broke it down for him. So, because I know that as we were having this conversation of the topic, like I could tell he was uncomfortable and it was kind of heavy. So I like turned it into like simple things that his mind could understand. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this doesn't only have to be about like drugs and alcohol. Like, this can also be about sugar. This can also be about other things. Like, there's plenty of other things in life that aren't that serious, that also aren't good for us, and that we shouldn't indulge in every day. And we need to know our own limits and how far is too far for us.
And talking with our kids about the environments that we put ourselves in, like the
Yeah.
importance of that. And I know that a lot of people have heard this, but you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. And that's the important piece here. So, the power of influence. And that is how we're going to close out this season of the Jessyl and Alex podcast. I am curious your thoughts on the power of influence and what your view and your take on it is. Feel free to drop your comments or share with us. And
For those who don't know, we're heading to Spain in like 3 days. And then we will be there for a couple of weeks. Estonia, couple of weeks. Then El Salvador for about a month and a half, and Nicaragua. So we will be recording. We will be posting episodes. We will be on social media. We're going to take a week or 2 week break, but we will be back. It's just give us some time to settle in.
and as always, if you have any recommendations or want us to talk on something, shoot us a message
On Instagram.
on Instagram.
Whoop, whoop.
Jessyl Lang at Jessyl Lang or at Alex Lang 22.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, we're signing off at 2300 a night here in
11 p.m.
Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic.
Whoop, whoop.
Till next time.
See you guys.